Hi, I'm Amy Porter, and this is my podcast.
Hi, guys.
My mission is to show people how to empower themselves through music, business, and media. I try to see as clearly as possible how I can help. I showcase the music that I've played and the people I've met along the way. I'm a wife and a stepmom. You might know me as a professor, a performer, a producer, a publisher, a recording artist. I'm the founder of a couple of nonprofits. Welcome in to my Porter Flute Pod. Welcome to Porter Flute Pod. It's Season 8, Episode 4, and today it's about respect. It's about standing up for women as a woman. Today I will show you two different cases. I'll follow the lead of our youth, and we'll celebrate the journey as they uncover who they are and how they will express themselves in the music workspace and outside the music field. After that, I'm going to air our AOS Wellness Channel's interview with Dwyer and Amanda Stewart. We did this last year for our membership, and I thought I'd bring it to Porter Flute Pod. They discuss the ideas that women in the orchestral workspace have to think about moving forward in 2025. Amanda opens up to Laura about her youth as a student and her early days of learning and how to stand up and bear witness with compassion. Laura speaks to Amanda about listening, especially to other women, and being brave when you need to be. They discuss consequences of standing up for injustice as a woman in the classical music workspace. Laura asks Amanda many questions, and among them, do you regret losing your job over standing up for justice at the NY Philharmonic? You can also catch Amanda Stewart's YouTube video regarding her DEI in music from the International Trombone Festival in 2024, and I will link that in the transcript. Let's begin with Ting-Yu Yeh, a newly graduated student, someone who leads us not only in music, but also in the journey of what it means to be a woman in a male-dominated field like chemical engineering. Here are the questions I asked of these students, and Ting-Yu Yeh will be answering them a little differently than you might expect. What did you think of SMTD? Did it meet or exceed expectations? Do you feel equipped to be in the music world better than you did when you got here? What was your favorite thing about SMTD, about the studio, about the whole experience? What advice do you have for flute applicants in 2026? And where do you see yourself in 5 years? Meet Ting-Yu Yeh, an extraordinary flutist from Taiwan.
I really had no idea what to expect when I first started at SMTD, but I really enjoyed my time there. One of the things that I appreciated the most was how flexible and open-ended the experience was. It wasn't a one-size-fits-all kind of program. It really allowed each person to build the kind of career that they wanted and decide what role music would play in their life. I felt like I had the freedom to explore and grow in a way that was meaningful to me. I definitely feel more equipped to be in the music world than I did when I arrived. I learned a lot about the industry through the guest artist panels and through stories shared by Professor Porter and other professors about their careers. I got a better understanding of the different professional paths available and what it takes to land a job. Things like audition prep and how to present yourself in professional settings. I also gained an incredible amount of repertoire and improved my musical literacy. One of my favorite things about SMTD, and especially about the studio, was the atmosphere. It was so supportive and welcoming, which honestly wasn't what I expected from such a prestigious music school. There was a really healthy balance between expectations and freedom, which really helped me thrive as a musician. I also had a great experience doing a dual degree in chemical engineering and flute performance, and I felt really supported by the music faculty every step of the way. I think for applicants considering SMTD in 2026, my advice would be to record yourself often, listen to a variety of recordings, and learn about the background of the pieces that you're playing. If you're preparing an excerpt, make sure to listen to the full work so that you understand the excerpt in the larger context of the whole piece, and also the flute part in the larger context of the orchestra. Looking ahead, I'm about to start a new job in Boston as a process engineer at a pharmaceutical company. And in terms of music, I'm planning to continue taking flute lessons and hopefully play in local orchestras. But over the next few years, I'll see how things go with my job and how much time I'll have for flute. I may pursue higher education in flute or engineering in 2 or 3 years, but I'm not sure yet. The one thing for sure is I will keep playing the flute.
And now, please listen to this important interview that my Anatomy of Sound partner, Laura Dwyer, gave with Amanda Stewart. We want to be applying her brilliant guidance. We should be shocked by the statistics, and we should retain the takeaways. It's important for women to know what to look for navigating the classical music industry. Be inspired by her bravery.
Welcome, Anatomy of Sound friends. I'm super excited to get to share with you today a talk with Amanda Stewart. And many of you saw Amanda's presentation from the International Trombone Festival.
Yeah.
That was the presentation that we shared with you last month on Anatomy of Sound. And I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to Amanda today because she is so well versed in the ideas that we have to think about as we move forward as women in the orchestral community. And I'm super excited to be with you today. Excuse our background. We're here together at the Colorado Music Festival, staying in relatively almost like a dorm. So excuse our background, but welcome, Amanda. I'm so excited to have you with us today. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, of course. I'm really excited to be here with all of you and with my great friend, Laura.
It's really fun to be together. So I have a question, Amanda. We watched your presentation that you gave at the Trombone Festival, and I think what I'd like to start off with is, in your opinion, what are the most important statistics and takeaways from your presentation that you gave us that you discovered while you were researching?
Sure. I would say there are probably several types of statistics. I would venture to say that the ones that were most shocking to me were probably statistics about sexual violence. Mm-hmm. The first statistic I believe that I showed was every 68 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted in the United States. So we start from a place of understanding this is really prevalent. It's something that's happening everywhere. It's happening in our culture. And so I think that reality, we really need to let that sink in.
Oh, no kidding. So
that we understand the problem and we can move forward from that. The other statistics, I think, my watch is talking to me. The other statistic, focusing on women, 1 out of every 6 women in the United States has either experienced a rape or has experienced an attempted rape. So it's very stark. And even for men, though, it's a much lower percentage, but it's 1 out of every 32 has experienced that. And so those statistics are really helpful for us to understand, again, the concept of every 68 seconds, assault happens, and then who it's happening to. And the other statistic just about rape itself, 9 out of 10 rapes are against women, basically. Women are the victims 90% of the time. But then, of course, 10% of men. So it really does affect everybody, but it's predominantly, unfortunately, women who bear the brunt of this.
Yeah. Well, it makes us understand when you talk about it in those broader perspectives that it's so culturally wide. Of course, it's going to happen in places where we work and in orchestral situations. I think sometimes we think if you're in the art community or arts community that you're safer because people that are interested in the arts don't do those kinds of things, but obviously they do. And I have a question for you on those along those lines. How do you think things have changed for the better or worse now that there's more women in orchestras? It's kind of a big question.
Yeah. I think for me, it's probably, I think of it being better. Mm-hmm. The concept of having more people at the table, you know, so that it's an inclusive environment, so no one's being excluded anymore. That's really profound. I think the classical music industry has huge amounts of room for improvement when it comes to racial equality, because it's very low to see, you know, it's European white people still that are predominantly in orchestras, especially as you get higher up within the field. So overall better, I would say, you know, because there's more equality. Worse?
That's a big question too.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worse per se. You know, the only thing that I would kind of deem as worse would probably be early on, maybe when women were first coming into orchestras. I would feel like perhaps there was obviously this tokenism where we have this woman now, we have a woman, and so maybe it prevented other women from getting in there. It could have also created, unfortunately, this paradigm where the woman who was there wasn't supportive of other women because she was feeling like she's this great visibility. And so I would venture to say the only time that's probably still problematic is if you have sections of the orchestra where there is that token female, and how that can sometimes prevent progress because people think, oh, we've already done it, we don't need to do anything else.
I see.
Perhaps. That's the only thing I can think of.
And even it's true, even like a woman, it's like, well, I'm the woman in the orchestra. And if there's more women, that sort of takes away the spotlight on you having achieved this great thing. Right. That's interesting. That's a really interesting thought. I'm wondering what kind of things that you have experienced being a female trombonist or a female brass player. Are there things that you feel like you've had to fight because you were a female?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you just a few instances from auditions. I took an audition once. I'm not going to say which orchestra. It's an Ixom orchestra. And I made it to the finals, and I was runner-up for the job. And after the audition, you know, I personally didn't think I played my best. So that was already where I was at. I didn't pace myself well. All the rounds were on the same day, so the prelims, the semis, and the finals, and I ended up practicing between the rounds. So by the end, when I got to the section round, my face was tired, so I didn't really feel like I was able to portray exactly how I play normally. But I still played well, I felt like, you know. But the personnel manager called me after that audition, and he said the committee was not sure if a young, small girl could hang with the rest of the guys, basically.
Wow.
Could play up to that volume.
Wow.
And that was a concern.
Yeah.
And so my age and my gender were there, basically. I didn't get the job, obviously. And clearly that was playing a role in the decision. And I just let it go, basically. So, in the other instance, I ended up getting the job, but my gender was brought up in the committee, apparently. I was told that before I was awarded it. Like a question, do we want a girl here? Yeah. Wow. So, yeah. So it's definitely there. I feel like, though, that it's definitely gotten better. I think about the younger generation, younger than us, my students, they seem much more concerned about the topic as well. And I think that because of that, it's pushing the older generation, you know, to progress, basically, to have more progress.
It feels like young people are just expecting there to be a mixed races, mixed genders, and that's just normal, you know?
Right.
I hope that's going to be the case. But yeah, that's not how it started with us.
Yeah. For sure.
I mean, you know, when the being a flutist, of course, and a lot of our audience is flutists, that there were more male flutists than female flutists, and that has shifted pretty dramatically. But you're a brass player. That hasn't shifted as dramatically, although there seems like there's more women horn players, would you say?
Right. That's interesting.
That's kind of an interesting thing. Who knows? But you know, it's incredibly important to see so many women, and I think it gives a balance to the music. I really, really do, emotionally, and and in a group of people, there's always a good balance when there's men and women, I think. But let's move forward a little bit. So many of you have read the article about what happened to Kara Kaiser and Amanda Stewart, and we have added the link to this spot on AOS so that you can read it, because I think it's an important read, and it'll make you understand a bit more about this topic that we're talking about. But Amanda, I have a question for you. I think the thing that's left out of that article and that story, it's a horrific story about a terrible experience that Kara had, and I think what gets left out of that story for me is what you did. You were one of the only women, if not the only woman, that supported Kara at the time, that was brave enough to believe in her, but actively and in front of everyone be supportive of her. And what if you could talk about that a little bit, about how you were able to be strong enough, because you didn't have tenure either at that point. Both Kara and Amanda were in the tenure process when this happened. How were you brave enough to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's probably a layered response. Yeah. I think the first thing that came to mind is, as a woman, when we talked about the statistics, I fall in those statistics too. I think the majority of women have experienced something.
Yes.
Whether it's abuse or assault or harassment or discrimination, or, it's so prevalent. And so I come from a place where I have experience there. And so
me too.
When Kara told me that story, what happened to her, it was just like, of course this is what happened. Mm-hmm. This happened. This terrible, terrible thing happened. And that you don't walk away from that,
Although some people did. It's interesting.
Sure.
So the first thing you did, you believed her right off the bat.
Right.
You believed her right off the bat. And like you said, I think it's important to just pause and say that you couldn't walk away from it, because a lot of people did. But keep going. So how were you able to have that kind of strength?
I think for me, it probably stems from how I was raised. Mm-hmm. And so there was this really strong message that was instilled in me as a child, basically, that you do what's right.
Yeah.
And you stand up for people. Yeah. I remember growing up in elementary school that, kids would pick on each other. Yeah. Kids would pick on kids who had disabilities. Mm-hmm. And I feel like at some point I talked to my parents about it, mm-hmm. and because it really bothered me. And they basically were saying, you could say, hey, stop. Yeah. And so I would. Yeah. I would say, this isn't right. Oh. And I remember they didn't tell me to do this, but there was a bully in my school at the time. And he loved picking on people. And my dad told this story to me. And I remember doing this sometime in elementary school. He was picking on people on the playground. And I went and I shoved him down. And I stood on his chest, basically, with one foot. And I said, hey, pick on people your own size.
Wow.
Like, that's not okay. Wow. And the teachers told my parents later, they saw it happen, but they just said, we're not going to do anything about it because he's problematic. And so no one got hurt, but she put him in his place, basically. And so there was this there was and I have two other stories. One comes from a time that predates those stories, where I was in first grade and I had a teacher who was going through something very personal, probably some kind of personal trauma or something that was happening. And for whatever reason, I was the person that she took everything out on in class. And I remember it was really traumatic for me. And so much so that I actually hid in a suitcase once, so I wouldn't have to go to school, because I didn't tell my parents it was happening.
Wow.
But I was hiding in this suitcase in the closet, and my parents were frantically looking for me.
Wow. And
they were and I could tell they were getting really upset. Mm-hmm. They didn't know what happened to me. I needed to go to school. And so I unzipped myself, and I was, and then I told them why I was, this is happening. Yeah. I need to tell you this is happening. And so they went to the principal, and it all got sorted out. And this teacher and I ended up becoming friends, and I would go back and visit her throughout my elementary school time, because she took a break, came back, was a different person, was able to deal with her own stuff. But during that time, before I told my parents, there was I want to say substitute teacher. It's not substitute teacher. Maybe like someone who was doing their
Teacher
internship.
assistant
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
a teacher's assistant. Her name was Mrs. San Julian, and at the time, the teacher had me sit back in a corner away from the students at a desk, and I faced the wall because I was bad, basically.
Wow.
And this teacher was responsible for me, and so she would basically help me with everything that was happening during the class, and I was not able to interact with the rest of the kids. And so when my parents finally came forward to say this is happening, that teacher, she bore witness to it.
Yeah.
You know, even though she was lower on the totem pole, she stood up for me, and she said, "This is happening. Like, I'm going to bear witness to this and support this young girl who's going through this." And that really touched me, that someone, you know, would stand up for me, and what that felt like to be stood up for, and to have someone, you know, believe me, and all of that. And this is kind of funny. This is a little bit of a tangent. But when I told my parents for the first time it was happening, they were really upset. They went to the principal, and I was having to, you know, go back to school and face this reality. And my mom told me, she said, I was also throwing up during this time.
Oh my gosh.
So it was
really bad.
Yeah. And she said, "Now I want you to understand, you can throw up on that teacher. That's a problematic teacher. Just know you can do it." And I actually went to school at some point, and I told the teacher this. So
That's intense.
But anyway, so there was like a lot of different things that were happening, but I knew what it felt like to have someone hurt me, and then someone stand up for me, and people to believe me, and give me a path to deal with it, basically. And I was in first grade, so that was like a lot to learn.
That's huge.
But I feel like it really, when I think about that teacher's assistant, like it makes me emotional because she stood up for me. She tried to insulate me from what was happening as well. She believed me, and she said, "Yeah, this is really happening."
And I mean, that's an incredible experience, because then you paid it forward to Kara. You know, you knew what it felt like to be in that position, and in a strange way, almost being that teacher put you in a position of almost being ostracized in the corner, and this other person was there with you, and as you say, bore witness to it and said, "No, this is not right. This is what's been happening. The truth is here. She's not a bad person, or she's not a bad kid. That this is this teacher's response right now." That's pretty huge when you put it up against what happened in the New York Philharmonic at the time. If you're unfamiliar with the story, take that time to read the article that we have linked to it, because it really is going to make a whole lot of more sense when you understand the story behind it. But I think that's so important, because I was struck by the fact that you were brave enough to do that when you didn't have tenure, when you were in a vulnerable position yourself. And I wanted to ask you why you think, because there were more women than just you, why more women don't stand up for women in these situations where they are not believed by other women. What's that about?
Sure. I mean, I think it's really baked into the culture, so much so. I think there are layers, and I'll try to go through them. I think the biggest reason so often in that particular situation would probably be fear. If you have something to lose, or going against the status quo of what's around you, the power structure that's there, and that can easily stop a lot of people. The other reason I think, and I kind of talked a bit about this in my discussion at the International Trombone Festival, deals with kind of the culture that's around us. You could call it the patriarchy, you could call it just systemic sexism, that we so often are taught sexist views, and we internalize them without realizing that we've internalized them. It's like we're swimming in this stew, a fishbowl of or something, like ocean of these beliefs, and we don't even know we're part of that. And so things that I know I heard growing up in different settings, women are not as important. So a lot of times certain religious settings can instill the belief that women are less than men. And then you have, kind of in a cultural perspective, women are not as capable, women are not as strong, women are not as reliable, women are hysterical, women are not as smart. So you have all these things that we're taught somehow. And the places, so I talked about religious settings, but you also, you have them sometimes in your family, in your large family circles. You'll see them in your schooling. You'll see these beliefs in movies. Like, it's kind of shocking to go back and watch a movie from the 70s and see how women are portrayed. And what's interesting about media is it's the same in music. The people who were making the movies, who were writing the movies, were predominantly men. And so a lot of those, male-centered views of how women are portrayed are in all of those movies that we grew up watching and internalizing. And it wasn't until recently where I feel like we're seeing strong women lead characters, that aren't the damsel in distress tied on the train tracks, like, help me, but are actually the hero that's coming in to save the day. And that's newish.
It's powerful. Yeah, it's very new, actually, when you start thinking about it. Well, it's interesting because when you talk about that, it's like we view ourselves, our own selves, as less intelligent, or maybe we're hysterical or whatever, and then we view the women around us. It's like, well, maybe she's blowing it out of proportion, or maybe, all these things, because we think of ourselves that way too, without realizing how deeply it's embedded. Well, and again, I don't want to harp on it too much, but I think it's incredible that you did that under all of those circumstances. I think it's a big deal, and I think it's like one of the big stories that came out of that article too, to me. And it's one of the things that we can do for one another. And I wanted to ask you those questions too, to talk about, I guess, the fact that we can be brave for one another, and we can stand up for one another, and that our first thought is not to question someone's experience. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I had two thoughts really quickly that I haven't sort of talked about maybe in my upbringing that related a little bit to my reaction, why I chose to believe, why I chose to be brave. One is probably my religious upbringing. Growing up in a Christian family, the story of Jesus Christ basically is one of great sacrifice. Right?
Yes.
And so the concept that we see in the Gospels is the guy coming down, dying, basically, and then being resurrected. But it's the laying down of one's life.
Wow.
And it's also the sacrificial nature, like the servant leader, right? So this person has all this power, but is choosing to strip himself of this power. Lay his life down. And also in how we see him in the Gospels reacting to people around him, right? So it's this constant serving of others, giving of oneself, and standing up against, he was standing up against the power structures of the time, right? So there's sexism that was present there. There is religious hypocrisy, and different types of power structures that he was constantly butting up against, So I think that obviously impacted me in that decision. And then the other thing, it's non-religious, but it's interesting. It's a movie that I grew up watching as a kid, and it was one of my favorite movies, and it was on the Disney Channel, and it was called Perfect Harmony.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's if you watch, it's probably on a VHS somewhere. It's grainy, but it is about this friendship between a young white boy and a young black boy. And it was, I forget where it took place, but it was basically this private school, and it was for kids who were usually well off, all white, and it was focused around a boys' choir, and they were just beautiful singing. So this, typical a cappella boys' choir, obviously sometimes with accompaniment. But this young white boy became friends with, I believe it was the janitor's son. And he was interested in the different types of music that this young boy was playing. He was playing the harmonica, and they became friends. And he heard him singing one day, and then they would sing together. And so the young white boy would teach him music from the boys' choir, and that he would sneak out sometimes during the night or like, you know, on the weekends or something, and go over to this young boy's house, and he would learn other types of music. He would go to his black gospel church and hear this different type of music, and they were it revolved around music and their friendship. And then, you know, the boys were really angry that he was friends with this young black boy, and they ended up attacking him in the woods.
Wow.
And the story goes that this young boy was actually one of the great singers there, and he was going to sing this huge solo in this piece, and the choir master was from the north, and he ended up finding out that this young white boy had taught the solo to this young black boy, and he heard him sing sometime. So long story short, the young black boy was able to sing the solo in this all-white choir. But it really touched me, I think, because it involved music, and I was obviously, you know, interested in music at that point. But it showed also doing the right thing.
Yeah, doing the
when
right
people
thing.
were standing against you, this young boy did the right thing, even though he was physically attacked for it. You know, so I think this you know, theme of you just have to do the right thing.
Do
like
the right
it's
thing.
so it's so
Yes.
ingrained that I just I knew the pressure I was under, and I knew it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I knew that my job was on the line.
Yeah.
But I think I was also sort of naive in believing that the people around me would have some integrity.
Yeah, they would also do the right thing.
That they would also do the right thing. And they didn't.
Yeah.
Basically, they didn't do the right thing.
Men and women.
Yeah.
Men and women didn't do the right thing.
Right.
And that's powerful to hear those, you know, I mean, I hadn't thought about it that way, that the way that you were brought up, and also the experiences that you had growing up all pointed you in that direction to be brave at this pivotal moment for your friend.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's like, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that that's who we can be for each other. For other women musicians, or men, you know, whoever, it doesn't have to only be for women, but it's important to listen. It's important to believe first, and not insert our own life experiences and think, well, you know, listen to what this person's saying, which is what you did. And I think the bravery, you know, when she, Amanda, you talk about it, when you say, I knew what I was doing. She knew that she was putting her job on the line. And you'll find when you read the article that there were some consequences. And of course, now she's in the St. Louis Symphony. She's associate principal there. And things worked out beautifully for her. But there were consequences. And I got a question for you. Do you regret it?
No.
See?
Yes. No, not at all.
Not at all.
Because it's so clear that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I was devastated to basically lose my dream job. Because I went to Juilliard, and I would look out. I always would practice on the 5th floor, and I would look out over Lincoln Center and think, wow, wouldn't it be amazing to work at the Philharmonic one day? You know?
And then you did.
And then I did, and it was completely different than I thought it would be. You know, I didn't, I mean, to this day, like, I don't, like, when I go to New York City, it feels like I don't love being there, because it's this memory of what was there. And I haven't stepped foot in Avery Fisher since then.
No, really, it was about whether it was worth it. And
totally.
I love that the instant reaction is like, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, doing the right thing is rarely not worth it.
Yeah.
You know, and it just lined up with everything about who you are.
Right.
I mean, I think it's a powerful thing, and I think it's something that we need to internalize if we're moving through life in any culture. It's not just, this doesn't just happen in orchestras and bands and faculties and all the places that we're going to exist, but that we need to listen, we need to believe, and we need to stand up. You know,
Right.
Because if we keep standing up for one another, eventually consequences happen to the right people, which is kind of in progress now at the Philharmonic. But it was a tough time. Anything else you want to talk with us about that you think, maybe a takeaway that you think we should or could think about as we all move forward in our musical lives?
Sure. I was thinking a little bit about the regret piece again. Obviously, like I said, no regrets, but it was also the realization, eventually, I arrived at the realization that why would I want to work at a place like that? You know, why would I want to surround myself with people who don't believe victims, who don't do the right thing, who only are really concerned about themselves and restoring the status quo, holding the power. I just, you know, all the mind games, all the things that were done there, like, I don't have to be there.
No.
And that's a blessing.
It is
and
a
it
blessing.
it took me several years to view that as a blessing, but it really is. And so I kind of goes like, you know, for people to think, you know, unfortunately in music, especially in the orchestral landscape, those jobs are really hard to get. And we feel like we have to keep them because that's all that we have. I would say that, you know, if a door closes, another opens, whatever that means. But if everyone chose to do the right thing, if everyone chose to protect other people when you have the power to do it, or when you don't have the power to do it, if everyone started to do that, the culture would just immediately change, right? And you think about just if you just do it in the music industry, it would be just overnight, you know?
Overnight.
God,
that's powerful. I mean, it's really powerful to hear you say that if everybody did the right thing, how things would change and how quickly things would change. And I really believe that. I know my personal mantra, and I know you know this as a friend of mine, is people first, music second. And I think that we think too that someone who plays well or a job is worth more than an individual sitting next to you. And I don't believe that. And I don't know, that took a while because a lot of people around us do think that. Right. You know, like, well, you know, it's music, so we have to put up with this, or we have to do this, or, you know, that human being doesn't matter because they don't play at this particular level, or whatever it is. And I just, people first, music second. And I think that's an interesting thing because that's what you've been saying since we started talking about this in a different way. It's the same thing. Right. People first. Wow, it's powerful to me. It's powerful to me. And I also want to say thank you for being that example, because I can't think of anybody else that's done something that brave in that situation. It means a lot. It means a lot. And I think let's follow her example. Let's be those people too. Let's be those friends and those women to one another in this field. Thank you for talking about this, because I know it was a difficult time and a lot of things happened, and I just wanted to honor you honestly for what you did. I just think it's a big deal. I think it's a really big deal.
Don't forget to check out Amanda Stewart's video on YouTube from the International Trombone Festival in 2024. Thanks again for being in Porter Flute Pod. You can find us at porterflute.com, amyporter.com, and always visit aos-wellness.com for more Laura Dwyer. I hope if you enjoy the podcast, you can give us a good rating on Apple Podcasts if you like the show. And don't forget, pick up my new book, Anatomy of Sound, an invitation to discover the inner musician. Plus, you can get 10 strategies for the unknown in music performance. That's in this book, but I made a video for it. You can find that at aosworkshop.com. Thanks for being in Porter Flute Pod. I'm so grateful for you.